This happened on my 23rd birthday. I'm 45 now, and even after all these years, I still remember every second like it just happened. I was living in Michigan at the time, in a rougher area that I couldn't really afford to move out of yet. It was early January, cold and dark outside, and I was getting ready to go out for the night. A friend was watching my son while I celebrated, so I was cleaning the house and getting dressed. My son was home with me. He was 4 years old then. I was a single mom, doing everything on my own. At one point, I stepped outside to take the trash out. I left the front door cracked open since I was heading right back in. That was the mistake. I had barely taken a few steps when I heard my son's voice from inside. "Mom, someone's here." Something about the way he said it made my stomach drop. It wasn't curious or excited. It sounded confused, nervous. I turned back toward the house, and that's when I saw him. A man stood just inside my doorway. He was wearing a dark hoodie and a mask that covered most of his face. Before I could react, he shouted that he had a gun and told me to give him my money. I had just been paid that day. My first instinct wasn't to fight, it was to protect my son. My purse was downstairs in the dining area, but I lied and told him it was upstairs, hoping to buy time or distract him. Instead, he grabbed me by the shirt, ripping the chain right off my neck. That was when fear turned into something else. Anger. I hadn't seen a gun. And before I could stop myself, I fought back. We struggled hard. He got in some solid hits, but I landed a few of my own. My son was screaming, crying hysterically behind me. The front door was still wide open. Summoning everything I had, I shoved him with all my strength. He stumbled backward and fell down the front steps, hitting the ground hard. I ran outside screaming for help, yelling until my voice cracked. By pure chance, a police officer was driving by. I told him everything, barely able to breathe. It was winter. They followed the tracks in the snow. They caught him. He went to jail, but not for long. About a year later, I saw him again while walking into a grocery store. The moment our eyes met, my heart stopped. I grabbed my son and left immediately. When I contacted the court, they claimed they had sent me a notice about his release. I never received it. 6 months after that, his face was on the front page of the local newspaper. He had killed someone. He's serving 55 years now. And all I can think about is how easily that could have been me, or my son. If he'd been locked away the first time, a life might have been saved. For years after that night, I slept with a knife wedged into my front door. I jumped at every sound. I trusted no one. It wasn't until I met my husband that I finally learned how to feel safe again. But even now, I still check court records sometimes, just to make sure he's still behind bars. Because once you come that close to losing everything, the fear never fully leaves. My name is Dylan, and this is something that still keeps me awake when storms roll in. I was 18 at the time, living with my dad while juggling part-time college classes. He worked 2 jobs, and during hurricane season, it wasn't unusual for him to get called in for emergency work. That night was no different. He left late, promising he'd be back the next day, and I was home alone. I remember lying on the couch, half watching a movie while rain hammered against the windows and thunder rolled in the distance. There was something oddly comforting about it. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. I woke up to the sound of the home phone ringing. We got calls all the time. Wrong numbers, spam, people looking for my dad through his work. So nothing about it felt alarming. Still groggy, I picked up and muttered hello. All I heard was static. I was about to hang up when I noticed something else underneath the silence. It sounded like faint breathing, then soft crying. I said hello again, my pulse suddenly picking up. A small voice answered. It sounded like a little girl, maybe 5 or 6. She was crying, trying to keep her voice low, like she was afraid of being heard. Then she said very clearly, "Help me. I've been taken. I've been missing for 3 years." My stomach dropped. I told her to stay on the line and grabbed my phone, dialing emergency services. When the operator answered, I told them to listen and put the call on speaker. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I asked the girl where she was. She said she didn't know. All she could tell me was that the house was small and white. She said she was in a dark room, alone. She sounded exhausted, like crying was the only thing she'd done for days. Then, without warning, I heard a loud door slam open on her end. The girl screamed. The line went dead. The operator asked me questions while I tried to process what had just happened. I texted my dad, my fingers barely cooperating, and he told me to stay calm and call again. This time giving our address so officers could come talk to me. The police arrived and questioned me for nearly half an hour. They checked the phone records, took notes, and asked me to repeat everything I heard. In the end, they told me the truth, that calls like that were almost impossible to trace. They never found out who the girl was or where she was calling from. It's been years, but whenever I hear heavy rain or thunder, I think about that voice on the other end of the line. I hope she was found. I hope she's safe. But deep down, I'm not sure she ever was. This happened to me when I was 12, and it's the reason I can't stay home alone anymore. Back then, I lived in a small, quiet New England town, the kind of place where nothing ever seemed to happen. Old houses, narrow roads, and a constant feeling that time had stopped years ago. My mom had recently gotten a call for a job interview in the city, and she trusted me enough to leave me alone for a few hours while she went. Before she left, she went over the usual rules. Don't open the door, don't go outside, don't talk to strangers. I promised her I wouldn't, and she was gone before I even finished nodding. At first, everything felt normal. I stayed in my room watching cartoons, trying to enjoy the rare freedom of having the house to myself. About an hour later, I went downstairs to grab a snack, and that's when I saw him. There was a man standing in our backyard. He was facing away from the house, hands in his pockets, completely still. At first, I tried to explain it away. Workers had been around earlier in the week fixing a pipe, so I assumed maybe it was one of them, but something felt off. He was dressed entirely in dark clothes, with a hoodie pulled low over his face. He didn't look like someone fixing anything. I told myself I was overreacting and went back upstairs. Not long after, I decided to take a shower. I stayed in longer than usual, enjoying the sound of the water, trying to relax. When I turned the water off, the house felt quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard the front door open. My first thought was that my mom was home early. I grabbed my phone and texted her, asking if she'd made it back. Her reply came quickly. She was still driving home. That's when the panic hit. Someone was inside the house with me. I wrapped a towel around myself and slowly crept toward the stairs, telling myself I just needed to see who it was. Looking back, that was the worst decision I could have made. At the bottom of the stairs, I peeked around the corner and froze. There was a man standing in my kitchen, tall, broad, mid-30s maybe. He was holding a large wrench in his hand, gripping it like he'd been waiting. The moment our eyes met, I knew he'd known I was there the entire time. He leaned slightly forward and whispered 5 words that still haunt me. Run while you still can. I screamed and bolted up the stairs, slamming my bedroom door and locking it just as heavy footsteps followed behind me. The steps stopped right outside my door. I could see his shoes beneath the crack. Then the banging started. He slammed the wrench against the door, shouting for me to open it. I knew it wouldn't hold for long. I didn't call for help. I didn't think. I just acted. I opened my window and jumped. I hit the patio hard, pain shooting through my legs, but I didn't stop moving. The moment I saw my mom's car pulling into the driveway, I ran to her, screaming and crying. She went inside immediately. Moments later, 2 loud gunshots echoed through the house, followed by shouting. Neighbors called the police, and they arrived within minutes. The man was taken away in handcuffs. As they put him in the car, he turned and looked at me. There was no fear in his eyes, only anger. We moved out a month later. I spent months in therapy trying to feel safe again. To this day, I don't know what he planned to do. But I know one thing for sure. If I hadn't trusted my instincts, and if my mom hadn't come home when she did, I wouldn't be here telling this story.